which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I have not heard anything from him.
Sorry, I gotta catch my breath. Got to school and realized I didn't have any of my stuff. So, welcome to the Union City Community Schools Board meeting. Our meeting agenda is available for you to follow. The expectation for our board meeting is to follow this agenda closely. We operate under the Open Meetings Act and utilize Robert's Rule of Order to govern our discussion and decision-making process. There is an opportunity for public comment during our set agenda. We welcome the public to express their opinions during this time of our agenda. If there are questions about the agenda or the board meeting process, please seek out one of the board members for clarification. Do we have any addition or deletion of items to the agenda?
I'm asking for the addition of a discussion item regarding a special meeting for next week.
All right. I forget. We have to vote on that, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
For the addition to the agenda.
Yes, okay. I will entertain a motion to add this to our discussion item.
Support.
Discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Motion carries. We'll move on to the consent agenda. I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as provided.
I'd make that motion.
Second.
Discussion?
Are we going to discuss the field trips or just say yes to them?
This would be the time to discuss them if you wanted to discuss them.
Okay, I thought maybe there would be a presentation or some explanation as to what they were, but and what responsibility do we have other than just sending chaperones, etc.? I mean, Chicago's one thing, France and Spain is a little different. I just want to make sure that I know what we're signing up for.
The France and Spain was mentioned by Erin when she was here and talked about the trip to South America. She just wants to begin the process of looking into it and planning for it. If you don't want to approve that now and you'd rather have her come back with more specific information, we can.
I just want to know what responsibility we have if we say yes to that tonight.
I think it just allows them to be able to start their process of planning.
There's like no risk to us.
Well, what was the process last year?
It'd be no different than when they went to South America.
South America.
Same thing.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Motion carries. We'll move on to correspondence. Do we have any today? Okay. Move on to comments. Our first public comment section. This is a section of meeting in which the public may make comments or share their opinions about the items on the agenda. We ask you to limit your comments to no longer than 5 minutes per person to allow others the opportunity to speak. This is an opportunity for the board to listen to your concerns. It is not board practice to act on the concerns voiced during this meeting to allow for the board to do further research. Do we have any public comments at this time? Seeing none, we'll move on to our presentation. This will be by Chrisman Company Construction Management Firm.
Yes, we have the Chrisman. See, you got me talking
Almost the
about
holiday season.
So we have the Chrisman Company here to talk with us, and so they're going to use the projector. So, and Bertha, you and I move to those chairs there,
Oh yeah, okay.
and then they can stand up here.
Perfect.
And we'll hook up their laptop.
I gotta turn.
No, we'll move. Yeah, we'll move once it's our turn.
Yeah, thanks.
Walk randomly back and forth.
We have a picture.
Well,
I think it worked on the first try. So, am I in a good spot?
Yep.
Great.
Great.
Perfect.
So my name is Amy Scobie. I'm a Senior Vice President for the Chrisman Company, and we're going to talk a little bit more tonight about the organization and our services that we provide. Michigan, which is not too far away from here. And I went to Michigan State and have been in the Lansing area ever since. Been with the Chrisman Company for about 11 years. My background is actually in public sector, higher education and nonprofit, community development. Never planned on being in construction management, but I was doing a lot of work with public-private partnerships, and the Chrisman Company recruited me to come work with them so that I have the opportunity to work with districts like yours in bringing communities together to put together programs that end up being infrastructure projects. And so I'm able to bring that community development, community involvement expertise with my partners in the construction arena. So Rob Crow.
Hello everyone, my name is Rob Crow. I'm Vice President at Chrisman as well. I grew up in the Lansing area, joined the Army. I kind of did a few tours around the world, but also picked up some degrees in civil engineering and leading people. So that translated into a transition back to the civilian sector, where I've been at Chrisman now for about 12 years managing projects. So I spend a lot of my time in the operations part of our company, delivering the projects. I've had the great fortune of working in the K-12 arena for a long time. I really love connecting with clients in that market. My wife is a librarian at the middle school in East Lansing, so I kind of live it at home and live K-12 at work, and I like that. It is a pretty special space to be in, so when I get to come and talk at school board meetings and be a nerd about construction management and connect with people that I interact with day to day, I really love it. So happy to be here and looking forward to talking more about about this project. And sorry, I'm going to pass it to Brett here to introduce himself.
I'm Brett Gillespie. I am the Bond Services Manager for the Chrisman Company. My job is to help K-12 districts and municipalities work on bond proposals. We help with the messaging for the informational and advocacy campaigns, if that's the way, the route that you choose. I've been with the Chrisman Company almost 2 years now, actually, and I have a background in public policy and political campaigns, local campaigns especially, including my own for local government, successful ones. And I have a passion for that, and was recruited by the Chrisman Company to help with our K-12 and municipal projects.
So we're here tonight to just give a little bit of information about the services that Chrisman provides and helping districts and communities come together to create a common vision in support of their infrastructure needs. So I've been, like I said, with Chrisman for about 11 years. During that time, we have we started out when I first joined Chrisman working for 1 or 2 districts a year, and we changed our approach within that time period to really become more involved with the community development aspects of K-12. Since that time, we have now, on an average, every year, have about 2 dozen school districts that we work with, representing about $1.5 million of construction across the state of Michigan. Those projects, the average size of those projects is about $30 million, but we have projects of all sizes. There's some projects that are just around $5 million. There's projects that, like for example, in Okemos right now, that are $275 million. It just depends on the community and what their needs are. The one thing that we've learned in all of this is that no 2 projects are alike. It doesn't matter where we are, we know that it really needs to fit what the community needs. And so we really have the distinct honor of being able to come alongside communities to leverage our understanding and then understand what the community needs and bring those 2 things together. We always want to put the students first. We want to understand what is it that the students and the community needs, and then be a facilitator, really an extension of the district staff, so that you don't have to become experts in how to do construction projects, how to do community development. We can really be an added service that is part of that team. So just a high-level overview of our philosophy of how we approach this. This is a little bit more about Chrisman in general. We are approaching our 130th anniversary as a company. We have 600 professional staff. About a quarter of the work that we do is in education. We have an EMR, which is a term, an industry standard for safety rating. Clearly, with anything that involves students, active campuses, that is very important. We want to make sure we're keeping everyone safe, and B, maintaining ongoing operations, because we know that there are a lot of other things that you want to be focusing on during your day at school, not around safety or other issues that may emerge. And we're the 85th in the top 400 contractors in the country. And so what that means to you is you really get the best of both worlds. We're nationally known, we have a national ranking and expertise, but we're locally committed. And so that's important to us, again to bring those services and that expertise to the district. So we'll talk now a little bit more about K-12.
Yep. So on this graphic, the message we're trying to convey is that we have experience working with school districts across the state of Michigan. So this is a listing of all the school districts we've touched within the past several years. And they may not all be active, but it is projects that we have worked on with school district. And as Amy has very clearly said, we understand fully that each one is different. They range in size, they range in geographic location, but we like to think that we have learned a lot through these processes, and that information and those lessons learned we can bring to Union City here and help and add dialogue and add conversation to the process of figuring out what is the need or what are the wants and how we can help prioritize those for you. This is not us coming to tell you how it should be. It's us offering suggestions and things we've observed to help the conversation and the dialogue and determining what's the path, what does the community want to do to support the education of the students here. And here's just a few pictures of recently completed projects across the area, but just some examples. We have great experience in renovating existing structures, renovating buildings that have a need to be fully occupied and functional throughout that process. We have some districts where additions onto buildings occur. We also have experience with new buildings. So the entire spectrum of what could be the path that you want to go down as a school district here, we've seen variations of it, and we can help describe how that went or offer pros and cons of it, and just really assist in that decision-making process to figure out what is the answer and how do we best utilize whatever dollars that the community wants to generate and vote on. How can we deliver that the best for the educational experience of the students? All right. And then just a few kind of bullet points on how we help ensure this is a successful process, because we're talking about a lot of things here. There's a lot of components along the way, from hopefully asking us to join along as a partner of yours, to developing this bond process, ultimately maybe getting to a bond vote. All these things, that's just one phase, and then we'll get into other phases where there's a design and component, and then the actual constructions of it. But we just want to talk on, we are going to communicate openly with you the entire time. This is an exchange of information. We want to be as transparent as possible throughout that to really make sure that we're communicating kind of what our perspective is and understanding yours as well. It's hugely important that there are no surprises. Like, we want to inform you of what's happening so you can predict what's coming, and there's no surprise later that you weren't expecting, or a cost you weren't anticipating, or anything like that. We want this to be a seamless process integrated with your team. There will be a continuity of staff. We're not going to come talk to you tonight and then the three of us disappear and you deal with whoever we send from the office. No, you will have a personal connection with us as this process unfolds. That's very important for continuity and understanding and building trust and keeping that relationship throughout the duration of the project. I touched on lessons learned already. When we get into on-site operations, if we get to that point where construction is occurring, there will be a daily point of contact. There is a person here all the time whenever work is occurring. We don't approach construction in a manner where we hire subcontractors and then just have them do the work. That's not what we found to be successful. There will be a Chrisman employee managing that on-site every time there's any work happening. And that's just part of our commitment and focus on safety. We could do wonderful and amazing planning, have a bond pass with a landslide vote, do a great design, and if there was some injury or something on the project, that would all have been for naught. We cannot allow any unsafe activities. We cannot have any accidents or any injuries. That is not tolerable, and we won't allow that to happen. So safety on getting the projects once they get going is so hugely important to us. We treat it very seriously, and we focus on it constantly, so. I'm gonna transition over to Brett to talk a little bit about the campaign. Yep, I'll get out of the way. Thank you for letting me chat for a few minutes.
All right, thanks, Rob. So here's just kind of a little outline of the segments. I'm just going to talk about these first few here. But Crispin does have about a 95% success rate in our bond campaigns and bond elections. Here's just a few images of get out the vote and some of the tools that we use if you guys choose to go that route. The biggest and most important piece initially is the community coming together to create priorities, which I believe you're going to be doing strategic planning. And that's going to be coming up soon for you. And getting that set, those priorities set with the community helps with expected outcomes. Facility assessment, that's something that Rob and whatever architect partner we have would go through, look at all the facilities, tell us what the needs are, not even just the wants, just we're going with the needs, and then community input would help gather what those wants are with the steering committee. Typically, engaging with the community to finalize those goals. Those community-led campaigns are typically the most successful. The ones with community have a lot of input with the steering committee, and sorry, I lost my place here. My apologies. Where we have a steering committee that will help prioritize and put those aspects of what the facility assessment finds and what the district needs together. Through that, depending on which route you go, with Treasury, to borrow from the state of Michigan, the Treasury Department, you put together a package, the school board approves that, and the steering committee would make that recommendation to the school board for what that Treasury application would entail. And then we go to community campaign. So that's when the district would be putting out information, facts, figures, that's the district portion of it, and then there's the advocacy, which is that vote yes. And that's where if the district wanted, we'd have a political action committee, so to speak. We help with all the campaign finance stuff, fundraising, and really get out the vote, because that's going to be the most important thing. If the bond doesn't pass, we don't have anything to build. And then after the election, we get into design development and then the construction process. Switch to the next one there. These are just some examples of different campaign materials that we've done in different districts. I know it's hard to read, but these are your mailers. Some is just informational, your little palm cards. We try to get a lot of community involvement, kids being involved in messaging. This is ribbon cutting for one of the building openings that we ended up doing, a letter to the community, again, another postcard. So Crispin's really involved as a partner with the district to get that information out, to create those marketing materials, working with the district to really push that accurate information, and helping to facilitate those community forums. We'll facilitate the steering committee stuff, the scope development, not just that campaign portion of it.
I'll just chime in here so you can see how different each one of them looks, and that's because we want it to feel like part of the community. But what we do is we take our marketing team and we dedicate it to the district. So all these materials are things that our team puts together with input and direction from the district, and then puts it in a place where the community is able to gather that information. But it wants to feel like Union City. It doesn't want to feel like Lansing or like Crispin. So that's a service that we provide.
And that's one thing that I kind of pride in what our marketing department does, is really we do have separate campaigns for each district we work with. There's other partners out there that don't always do that, and it's nice to make it the district's own. Again, these are just a few more of the services. We'll do website development, both informational and advocacy. We'll help with social media, depending on what the campaign committee wants to do, t-shirts, the promotional materials, and then even other tactics like voter registration, getting out the vote, not just the campaign stuff, but really trying to help cultivate those votes that we need.
Including seniors in high school who might be
Yes.
voting for the first time. So we'll do, register them to vote so that they are able to vote in this election and in future elections that come up.
And this, I just want to put together a little bit of, just to get some perspective. Here in Union City, this is just a sinking fund. You guys, and you're well aware of this, you don't have any outstanding debt aside from that sinking fund, compared to some other districts that have, Harper Creek is right about 8. So you guys are really on the lower end of having that outstanding debt and obligations, which is really a good place to be. The one downside of that a bit is that you're going to have to ask the voters for a tax increase to build something. But that, frankly, that's the communities used to come together and physically build a school together, and now we ask for votes so that we can all get that school built. So it's just a flip-flop for the times. And this is by no means set in stone, but if we are selected to be your construction manager, just put together this calendar just to kind of show what we're looking at starting in January 1st. And we're looking at, I believe, a potential bond date of May 6th.
This is really theoretical.
Theoretical. Just throwing something out there. So what initially would happen, and regardless of when that election date would be, you'd want to have a long period of time where you're looking at the facilities and the needs, and then also that community input. Surveys, different community forums, steering committee sessions, and really I have the bond campaign is here, but in all honesty, the bond campaign starts from day one when you guys start doing your strategic planning. It's just not official, because that's when you start, getting that early messaging on, setting those priorities and those goals of what the district needs are. So it's, again, theoretical, but just kind of there to have a little perspective.
And we really are big on collaboration, so we always want to start from here's something to consider. So it's a lot easier to look at a piece of paper that has some ideas on it than a blank piece of paper. But what we love is then to sit down and then just whiteboard it together and figure out, in our community, maybe, we want to shift the approach and with the forums, or maybe we want to have more surveys done, or some listening sessions in small groups, or so that this is really just to kind of get a sense of some of the things we might consider, and we would decide that together if we're fortunate enough to be selected as your partner.
Exactly, we're not here to tell you what to do. We're here to help advise, consult, and work with you.
So that's really what we've prepared for our discussion tonight, but we're very open and interested in hearing your questions.
I have one just to start with. You probably charge a percentage of the cost of the project, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
What is that percentage?
That's a good question for
Yeah.
Rob to talk.
Can I field that? That's a great question. And there's it's a two-part answer really. Today, we're so early on in the process where we haven't defined scope, we don't know the magnitude of it. So I can't answer it with a number, but what I can answer is kind of a historical spectrum, like a percentage, and whether it's us or a different CM, how these are typically approached by the industry is setting a percentage rate that's market competitive, but then knowing that there's a lot of different variations that will occur along the way, like whether it's a qualified or unqualified bond, whether you'd like to enter into an agreement with us as a construction manager at risk, or if we're a construction manager as your agent. Some of those nuances affect insurances, and what I'm trying to articulate is there's a lot of variation. However, as far as planning purposes go, if you kind of plan for about 9.5% to 10.5%, that's the range you'll end up being. Percentage of what the total value is. The construction manager fee, staffing, insurances, bonds would all be wrapped up in that 9.5% to 10.5% range. Our fee would be a small component of that, but the construction manager services is where you're totaling out at 9.5 to 10.5, roughly.
Now, if the bond fails, is there a charge for you for the work you've done?
Great question. So our approach to this with your district this is just the Chrisman policy on when we're entering into this. We want to be your partner. We're here to support this, to have a successful vote. If the vote doesn't succeed, there is no money to pay. We are not going to send you a bill. We don't expect to be paid. So the term we're going to say that we call our services, the pre-bond services are at risk. If it doesn't pass, you're not going to pay us anything. When it passes, we hope to then enter into an agreement with you and continue on and build the project. So we have a vested interest in making sure that we help you all through this process define what the scope wants to be based on community input, the students, the staff, everyone, and to have a message to the voters that yes, this is what the school district needs, and it is the right fit. It solves, it's not what the construction manager wants, it's what the school district needs. And that we find that is a much more successful process to getting that yes vote, 95% success rate, when we pass the bond.
Okay, the final question I have is this a competitive rate or is it higher than most? I know that we built a church probably 15 years ago. We got one for 7%, and they were as low as 3%. Is this, of course that was Ohio, is this competitive with Michigan's or is it not?
It is competitive, and that rate, the portion of what I would call our fee is a small amount of that bigger 10%. I was wrapping in other things like insurances and all. But the short answer is yes, this is a competitive rate. If you solicit this against other CMs, we're all gonna be around the same ballpark.
Okay, thank you.
A question, oh, go ahead, dear, go.
You said you're working on, I think, a dozen projects. You'd have the bandwidth to start with us fairly soon, even this winter yet?
Yes, we do. We have 24 projects going across the state of Michigan, and we have 3 business units in Michigan. So we have one in Detroit, one in Lansing, and one in Grand Rapids. The Lansing business unit would be the one that's dedicated to this project. We believe that our team members should be able to go home and be with their families every night. So we never have someone driving more than an hour. We actually have people in the Jackson area that would probably be involved in this project. At the front end of the project, it would be primarily the 3 of us and developing that vision and scope. And then a project team would be dedicated from the company, and yes, you have our commitment that we'd be able to service the project.
I have a question regarding the information getting out in the election portion, so I'm going to kind of put this towards your question. Is it, as we are elected officials, we are not able to say vote yes. Is that correct? We just can say vote.
No. So we'll actually, part of one of the services we offer is like a little primer or a little boot camp on what you guys can do. Elected officials, you actually can say vote yes.
We can say
Yep,
that.
you just can't do it through your official email, things, school resources, things like that. But yeah, absolutely, you can go out there and campaign. And staff can too, just on their own time. So that's something we put together as a whole, a list. We can even come, and do a lunch thing or some type of a service, put together a PowerPoint that Chris can send out that would show do's and don'ts. So as elected officials, yes.
So individually, anyone can, but as an
entity,
as a school board,
as a
or as a
board,
district,
we
we cannot. We
And the
can only
district
provide
cannot.
information.
correct?
The district cannot.
Correct.
I would consult your attorney, but it's my understanding that if the school board wanted to have a vote saying, please vote yes, you may be able to do that. But yeah, as a district, you can't. That would be the informational portion of it.
Right.
The main thing is you don't want to use school resources
Right.
to advocate
Correct.
for the bond, but we all have freedom of speech, and so you're able to give your opinion about whether or not people should vote in favor or against.
The school board, though, is the district. Individually, we're not, but if we put UNC School Board on papers, then we'd be representing the district. That would be kind of edgy, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would, and that's why I would consult the attorneys if you wanted to go that route. But the best practice would be as individual board members to do what you'd like, just avoiding school resources. But as the school board, school staff, they can always say, vote May 6th, just not vote yes or vote no, that type of thing.
Can school board members use the school to be able to, individually, to be able to promote?
Typically you don't want to do campaign activities on school grounds.
That's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
One way that the board can show strong support, though, would be to unanimously vote to put the question on the ballot. That's a really good way to signal to the community, and that's something we always strive for. And so you'll see in the planning for how we would approach it is a lot of check-ins. If we had a steering committee to say this is where the steering committee is heading, and get input from the board and bring it back to the steering committee, so that by the time there is a recommendation from the steering committee to the Board of Education, we would have resolved any questions or things that might not be, supported at the beginning to all get to a common level of support.
Now, what about you guys? Can you use the school to be able to hold meetings here on the bond proposal, or is that off limits for you too?
So you can use the building for those events, as long as you're also offering it up to those who would potentially form a no group,
Okay.
as long as you're offering it equally. We tend to look for a different space, you know, if there is one available in a community, just so there isn't any question of, you know, are you crossing the line or not? But the rule is that as long as you're offering it to one side of the support or opposition, that you could offer it to both.
But again, like the community forums that I had on here, those would be informational, so we absolutely could host those here, or steering committee meetings we could host here, you know, that type of thing. And to go back on what Amy had said about school board updates, a lot of times if there is a steering committee, oftentimes there are maybe 2 members in the school board that serve on that. If you guys have a facilities committee, maybe those members are part of that steering committee, so that there is that open communication back and forth. Obviously, you have to avoid a quorum at those, but that's another way to keep everybody informed in that process.
So like at a basketball game or whatnot, you could have a table that would be an informational table, and the people there would only be saying, please vote, make your, you know, voice heard, you know, don't forget that the election is coming up, and you could provide factual information about what the scope is, but you couldn't say, and here's why you should support it. That's where you have to draw the line.
Anyone else have any questions or comments? No? Okay. Well, thank you very much
Yes,
for
thank you.
your presentation and giving us something to look at and think about.
Thank
you
Thank
very
you
much.
very much. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Very good presentation. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we'll move on to our action items. First up is financials. Board action is required to approve financials for the month ending October 31st, 2023. I'll entertain a motion for the same.
Move to approve.
Support.
Discussion?
The Esther shows out when the Esther will show in when it comes in later then, probably. Sure it will. That's fine.
I think
No.
that's directed towards
The
you
answer's
since
yes.
we don't have Sarah here.
Yes.
Any other discussion?
Usually they don't pay until after we want it, so
Yeah.
it's just normal.
All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Motion carries. Move on to bus driver position hires. Board action is required to approve the hiring of Brandy Harden and Ryan Harden for substitute bus driver positions. I'll entertain a motion for the same.
So moved.
Support.
Giving it to Paula. Discussion.
So these are substitute drivers, not official drivers.
That is correct.
Okay. And they're related evidently?
Yes, the
Yep.
ones in the winter.
Yep.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
those opposed, the same. Motion carries. Move on to bleacher project fencing bids. Board action is required to approve fencing bids for the bleacher project. I'll entertain a motion for the same.
So we had a couple of bids. One was incredibly expensive. In your packet, you have the bid from the blanking on
Performance Services and American Fence.
I'm blanking on the name of the
It's
company.
American
Justice.
Fence and Justice.
Justice Fence. So we went back to Justice Fence and we had to add some gates that in some places they were not aware of, and we changed the length of the decorative fence. You can see there's a photo in your packet that shows what the fence across the front, where the ticket stands will be across the front of the press box. It's a black aluminum fence, and the total amount there is just over $40,000, and that is within what we have in our budget.
Move to approve the Justice Fence contract for our fencing.
Support.
Discussion.
It's hard to see the quality, obviously, on its paper. Is there anything more like
Why
Is
is
this
it so different?
apples and oranges, or are they just way off?
Somebody not want the job?
I mean, it looks like it's about the same fee, about the same description, but it's, one sentence, so it's hard to tell.
Yeah, I asked him why one was so much higher, and he really didn't have our Jake from PSI didn't really have a good answer from them. My guess is they've already got more than enough work, or didn't want the work, or for whatever reason. You never know with these companies. Sometimes they just throw a bid out just because if they get the job, hey, maybe they're the only ones that bid on it these days. They're going to make a ton of money if they get the job. They were very comfortable with the bid from Justice. If it had been the other one, we would have not accepted that. We would have kept looking further. That was way too much money.
There's no standard for fencing, you don't know, it's not a commodity, there's a difference, so it's hard to know what we're buying, but if they're comfortable with that, then rather pay less for the same thing.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Motion carries. Move on to our discussion items, Neola policy updates.
The first reading of some updates are volume 38-1. These will come back next month for approval, so you have time now between now and then to read over them. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, and I'm happy to answer them. We also expect a Neola update by the end of the month, dealing with some of the issues related to changes in the law regarding our negotiations with the UCEA, things that are now negotiable that since 2011 have not been negotiable. And so we're expecting a policy update from Neola for that. I'll be just along those lines, I will say that I have had a lot of conversations with Troon regarding the changes for negotiations, and spent last Friday morning at the ISD getting a presentation from Troon's attorneys on this. Troon is a Michigan company. They handle Michigan education, that's their entire business. And they now have a policy service themselves that it competes with Neola. And they have had that now, I believe, for 3 or 4 years. And while many school districts are still with Neola, there are school districts changing frequently. And it is something I'm going to spend some time looking at, whether we might want to transition to Troon for the policies. And the reason I say that is that my connections with Neola are with the gentleman that comes to see me as a retired superintendent, very nice man, seems to know the policies well, but he's not an attorney. And Neola, as I understand it, is based out of Ohio. Whereas Troon is all they do is Michigan school law, and they're our attorney. And it would, I think it would provide more synergy working with these things to be able to work directly with our attorneys using the policies that have been approved by our attorneys for schools. And so I don't know what that kind of a transition would look like, or how much, or what the cost difference is or anything yet, but I'm just, I guess, letting you know that I'm starting to look into that because I see some real advantage to that. And I know that Harper Creek has transitioned over and are using Troon, and they seem very, very happy with that arrangement. So it's just something I'm going to be looking at, so wanted you to be aware of that.
Okay, great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Move on to information items, construction update.
Oh no, we had one more discussion item we added, remember?
Oh, I forgot, sorry. Yeah, special meeting for next week.
So we have a student, you may recall, a student that we suspended at the end of the last school year, and the board had asked that he reappear before the board beginning the school year this year before being reinstated. However, instead of coming back to school here in August, he chose, while he was actually at that time living in the Teconcha School District, and chose to enroll in Teconcha. He has now, his guardians now are, he lives back in our district, and they have asked us to re-enroll him. I have spoken with our attorney regarding this, and we can still require him to appear before the board before we re-enroll him. So it's my intent to they had a request from the agency
Of DHS.
to re-enroll him within 5 days, which is, according to our attorney, is not something they can demand. We received that last Thursday? Wednesday. And so I have a letter that I'll be sending them, letting them know that we're going to try to have we need to have them appear before the board. You asked for him to appear before he was re-enrolled, so I don't feel like we could bring him back in school until he appears before the board. However, rather than having wait until the middle or basically until before the Christmas break, I wanted to see if we could schedule a special meeting next week to have this hearing. And then I will include that in the letter I send them, what the date is. That gives them time to come and explain to you or show you, how they view that things will be different this time, and then give the board a chance to ask some questions and make a decision as far as re-enrolling the student. So I could also, at the time, with the board's unrelated to that, but I'll wait till public comment or the roundtable for that. Go ahead. That's all I'm saying now.
Okay. So, looking at next week's schedule, I don't know what works for people. For myself personally, Tuesday is out, but any other day could be worked.
Monday I can't do it because of TV programming.
I'm out Monday and Tuesday, maybe even Wednesday, to be honest. I'm out of state.
Not Wednesday, is that what you said? I couldn't quite hear you.
I'm out of state Monday and Tuesday, and it could end up being Wednesday too.
Okay. So what about Thursday for everyone? Is that a workable?
30th.
30th at 6:30? Does that work for
That works for me.
all y'all over there?
Thursday, 6:30.
Yeah?
Logistics, yeah, not a problem. I don't, does it make sense to try to bring a student in this late in the semester? I mean, is the goal to have them start next semester? I guess I don't see the reason to push for next week if it's, I mean.
Did you hear, Jamie? The trimester just started today.
They're in trimesters. They are in trimesters at the middle school.
Okay, so assuming the board elects to bring the student back, it would be a logical time to do it, and it makes sense to push for now instead of after.
It wouldn't. And they would basically, unless the board is going to say, you're not going to allow them to re-enroll. We enroll students all the time. We enroll students the week before the semester ends frequently. We have students start. We have students that start the week before report cards frequently.
I know that this student has some challenges, and so I just wondered if
That would be a decision for the board.
to do it now.
That would be a decision.
I didn't know
for
if
the
there was a
board.
reason to push for doing it for next week. Now I understand why. That was my question.
They would like him enrolled, like I said, they basically said, you must do it within 5 days. Our attorney says, no, we don't have to do that, but that is what their policy, and they're trying to impose that on us. They want him in school now, and so what I'm trying to do is give us time to get things ready for all of you to hear them, give them time to prepare what they want to present, but not delay it out any longer than we need to.
Fair enough.
Will
So-
we have time
With
to ask
Thursday
questions?
being Thanksgiving, it's kind of common to be able to say that we can't do it within 5 days.
Yeah, so
Will we have time to ask questions, or
Absolutely.
is that
Sure.
before we speak to them, like to talk, or should I just
You will have,
request time or ask questions with Mrs. Thomas?
we will share
before?
all of the same report with you that we have before, as well as what our recommendation is. And then you can reach out to me or Mrs. Thomas. Actually reach out to me, and then I can make sure the answers get shared with all the board members, to get you any other information you might need for that. And then when they come in and we have our closed session with them, you can ask them questions, listen to what they have to say, and then when they leave, then we can discuss it before we come back out and
Sure.
into open session and make a decision. Okay.
I don't know if it's the same as it was this late in the semester. Can the grades come from DeConcha?
That is an issue that we can discuss, yes.
Because usually that, at least it used to be that way at one time, that they would give him the
Yeah,
grades.
usually
So
when we enroll students midterm, we try to get some grades if we can from the other school.
Okay, thanks.
I will let Archie know that we have added that on.
Okay, so 6:30 next Thursday.
Yeah, and that would be the 30th, November 30th.
Yep.
Here,
Yes.
Archie's house.
Archie's house. He's not here to
Archie's
defend it,
provides
so. Okay. Sounds good. Thanks. All right, now we can move on to information items. Construction update.
Okay, just a couple of updates. First of all, with the project at the middle school, very close to completion. All the large units are on the roof. They told me today that the controls are about 80% done. That power is all hooked up to the roof units. They are planning to remove the old units from the gym that are hanging down during Christmas break, and power everything on. The ideal is that all of it will be functional after when we return over our Christmas vacation. That's what we're hoping. I don't know if I had told you, I think I had told the board, I think I forwarded it in an email that Spencer had talked with them about the exhaust fans in the bathrooms and that they have donated those. And so they, their company is about $24,000 worth. They've donated to our school, and they are installing all those new exhaust fans in all the restrooms. So again, the hope is that everything will be done over Christmas. So things are going well there. As far as the bleachers, the concrete work has moved past the bleacher phase. Our construction manager is happy because the on-site leader of that crew, foreman, is happy because he's leaving to go back south on Wednesday after their last pour on the bleachers. So they're having the last pour on the bleachers Wednesday, and then he's done. He does not like the cold weather, so he's ready to move south. There will be a new foreman working with the crew, but he was here for the bleacher part, which is the much more complicated portion, and that will be all done. They've poured the foundation for the restrooms. They started digging out for the ramp in the stairs, and hope to pour those. I understand the walls for those in the next week. They have no concerns about the weather really, except for flat surfaces. It'll depend on whether the frost is held in the soil or not, is my understanding. And so that's just weather related. Worst case scenario, they really expect to get it all done, but worst case scenario, they would have to pour the flat surfaces, the sidewalks and that in early April. But all the aluminum work will be able to proceed. That's all scheduled and ready to go. And they're having a meeting tomorrow with the construction, with Cook Jackson on the restrooms and the ticket pavilions, and they're supposed to be starting work on those tomorrow. So things are going well.
Great.
And it looks great too. If you've had a chance to go down there and look at the bleachers, but it really looks sharp.
Still on track to have running done by track season.
Yes,
Go to the bathrooms.
yes. All of the work on those on the bathrooms can be done. The foundation's in for those, so all of the work on those can be done through the winter months. So it's supposed to be done through the winter months.
Okay, next we have James Owens that's gonna give us some information.
Been instructed to be short, we're on a record time, so. Currently in Calhoun County, we do not have a continuum of care. So what I mean by that is we have, in the general ed setting, we have SPED services, and then for like acute or mild students, mostly acute students, we have DKDC, which is in Battle Creek for like high need students. But there's not an intermediary approach for students who need differentiated services. So myself, Ms. Thomas, and Ms. Johnson have been having conversations for the most part of this year to look at adding a program in each one of their building. So the program in the elementary will be early learning, and then in the middle school will be a secondary functional room. Last week we sent a proposal to the ISD. Essentially these rooms would have a teacher and then an aide, and there would be a criteria for students to enter into those rooms who have additional needs that are hard to meet in a general ed classroom with SPED services. And then they would be able to be in these rooms sometimes as a contained room or in and out depending on their needs. So they may be out for morning meeting and then they may be back in for different parts of the day. Mr. Katz just wanted me to let you guys know that we were working on that process and trying to address that, and we sent that proposal last week. So hopefully we hear back here soon.
Yeah, we just have had a number of children this year that we just can't meet their needs in the regular classroom, and some of them cause disruptions in the regular classroom, which then interferes with the other students, and yet Doris Clausen will not accept them, or at least to this point has not accepted them, and so there's just this gap. If we can get these programs approved by the ISD, they would be special education services, 100% funded, paid for by the ISD. So it will not cost the district any additional funds, but what it would do is be a better environment for these students, while at the same time making our regular classrooms more able to function the way they need to function. So. And James and our principals have done a lot of work on this to try to get it to this point, and we're hopeful that they will approve it.
He seems to be optimistic.
Yeah, the ISD has a lot of special ed funding right now. They actually contacted me and offered to fund 3 LRE aids, which are basically classroom special education aids. The first ones they funded in several years, and at 100%. Several years ago, like 2015, something like that, they were looking at cutting funding, and rather than do that, they started only paying for one-on-one aids and no longer paying for classroom aids. And so they are offering us 3 of those as well. So they do have funding, and we're hopeful that they will fund this.
Ballpark, how many kids in each building is that?
So it's a 1 to 5 ratio, so you'd have 2 staff. So it would be up to 10 per classroom.
Is it hard to find people who could be trained to do this, or is it?
That probably is the most challenging part, because you would have to hire a teacher, and then you'd have to hire a staff that would support that teacher. So if it's approved, the next most challenging part will be staffing the rooms, and then after that is creating program and structure, and then the entrance criteria for students would be selected for that. But yeah, the most challenging part of this most likely will be staffing. After, if we get approval, it would be finding those people who can work in that room.
That's always a challenging part right now.
So that would be the next.
My point is, you can't just hire a parapro. It has to be someone who's
Oh, no.
who has
No, it would be, yeah.
special education training and
Yes.
education.
And then, yeah, the teacher would be, so it'd be a sped teacher.
How long is the approval process, and once it is approved, how long will it take to get those classrooms up and running, approximately?
Sure. Sorry, he didn't anticipate it being a long time. He has the approval, and then he has to take it to his supervisor. Like Mr. Katz said, there's a good amount of funding right now, so I would assume we would hear in the next few weeks. And then after that, it really comes down to finding people to work in those rooms, finding a space for them, and then looking at the structure and criteria to select students. So it would just be, at that point, it would be in our court to go through the hiring process. And then
Probably the hiring process will delay it more than anything.
so, and then Ms. Thomas and Ms. Johnson, I'm sure have a good idea of what they want those rooms to look like and how we would address that. A few weeks ago, I went to Lakeview. They have 2 of these rooms, and they have and you have like a range of students from K to 4th grade in there, and then they all have different, depending on the kid, they have different needs. So you just have to go through and kind of work out and sort based off their needs how that room looks for them. So
Did I hear you say right that there'd be 10 per classroom,
there could be up to 10 years.
and there'd be 2 teachers, 1 for 5?
Right.
Yeah.
Is the second teacher a parapro, or is the second teacher a regular?
Second
So you'd have 1 special ed teacher and 1,
parapro though. And then you'd have a
and there'd be 2 in each classroom with 10
Yeah, there would
kids.
be 2 staff, and then you would have essentially what's a 1-to-5 ratio. So you have 1 staff for every 5 kids, including those 2 staff.
So the hardest part would be getting a special ed teacher, not the parapro.
Yeah, that's the most difficult part. Because once you have that, and you have the funding, and you have the space for
Although
it.
getting parapros is not easy anymore either.
So,
Parapros have to have some pretty high requirements. So we have struggled to get parapros at times. Jamie knows all about that.
I would like
I
that.
didn't know about it at all.
Just moving forward by January or February, but sometimes I'm optimistic. So I would like to, because yeah, there are essentially this would help, like Mr. Katz said, address the kids who need additional supports, and then also have teachers who are in classrooms with situations that are more manageable because the situation is appropriate for the student who's in that classroom. So it would allow us to address both of those issues with those kids. So.
Would the middle school room only manage middle school kids, or high school kids go to the middle school too? How does that go?
Middle school.
Okay.
So it would be.
So nothing available for high
High school
school?
High school already has a functional program for
Oh,
special
okay.
education.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Completion class that Chastity
Yeah,
Allen
certificate
teaches.
class.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, appreciate it. Thanks, James.
Sorry, thank you.
No, that's okay.
I have one more information item that I didn't put on there.
Okay, go ahead.
One more piece of information is just that we found out we're going to get roughly, we believe, around $185,000 in that transportation funding, the rural transportation funding. So that is money that is not in the budget that we will be able to add in. So that will go a great deal towards helping with our funding deficit.
Good deal.
So
Just, I forgot what it had to be paid, used for.
it's for transportation. It goes. It's the money is there to reduce our cost of busing. So
It can go to any part of the
Pay for
busing.
the
Yep.
bus, and pay for bus
Situation.
drivers.
yep, it'll just reduce the amount of general fund money we put into our
Got it.
busing.
Okay,
Perfect.
all right. Now comes our second section of the meeting in which the public may make comments or share their opinions about Union City Community Schools. We ask you to limit your comments to no longer than 5 minutes per person to allow others the opportunity to speak. This is an opportunity for the board to listen to your concerns. It is not board practice to act on the concerns voiced during this meeting to allow for the board to do further research. Do we have any comments at this time? Seeing none, we'll move on to board roundtable. Does anyone have anything that they want to discuss?
I do.
Go ahead, Paul.
I'll try to speak loud.
Thank you.
Yes.
So when we have students that come up here that are in trouble or getting suspended, expelled, whatever, me personally, I find it disrespectful if they are sitting and slouching when they're before the board. I don't know how you guys feel about that. Is that something that we can say that they're required to stand before the board? when you're
We can ask them to
When you have
stand.
somebody
I don't know how I
pleading to
would.
stay in school and they're like this. I mean,
Well, that
it's
kinda
very
gives you an
disrespectful.
indication. I know, I
So
know.
I'm sitting right now.
I,
So I,
any student that
I'm not
comes
gonna
here
judge.
that's a troubled student, is on the spot to begin with.
Mhm.
And if we make them feel more uncomfortable, then just by the way they're sitting or something, we're asking for, I think, more problems than we're gaining from them. You know what I mean? These are like, some are in the middle school, some are in high school, some are in, and they're forced to come before the board to begin with, and the parents make them read a statement and things. I don't think we should fool with posture, make them stand before us. I think that's very uncomfortable, and that's not what we're here for. We're trying to make them comfortable to hear what they actually have to say.
I think the attitude that bothers me more than the posture.
I mean, it's almost the same thing
So I,
because they're showing that through their posture.
But attitude is something that we can judge a student by too. I mean, if somebody came here and stood direct attention and gave a presentation, that would be a plus for them. So we look at all kinds of things. But I don't think you're going to find too many middle school students and even high school students that are going to be comfortable standing with this. This is really something for them to even come here. I mean, we're like, they think the runners of the school and they're on trial. And I don't think they're ready for that at 12 years old or 13 years old. I think we just let them come and talk and ask them questions, and we'll get a good feeling to whether they should come back to school again or not.
Thank you, Dave. I just want to know what your guys' opinion was on that.
I think it's a good point, and I think it is respectful to do that. And if I was on the school board in the 1960s, I'd require it.
I don't think it's necessary. Maybe good coaching.
It was just a thought.
Mhm.
So,
It's a good thought.
They're pretty intimidated, and a lot of them are struggling as it is, and so, yeah.
Many of them won't even speak. They ask someone to read something for them. It can be difficult, but
It'd be even tough at a middle school principal, a high school principal, or a grade school principal to say, if you're going to come to my office, you have to stand at attention and talk to me. They wouldn't require that either.
Does that answer your question, okay, Paul?
yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I was just wanting to know, feel
Sure.
out of everything.
Tells me a lot about you. A good sign.
can I, another roundtable thing?
Yeah.
I just want to let you know, or ask, since we're having that meeting next week, I would like to bring a letter of intent that we could agree to with Crispin to begin the process and have the board discuss that at that meeting as well, if you're willing to do that.
Would it be more advantageous to do it that quickly? Is there anything else that we need to see or read or hear about before, that would be advantageous before next week, I guess
I
is my
don't think
question.
there's going to be any more information you're going to gather. I thought it would be better to do it while it's still fresh in your minds, as opposed to waiting to the next meeting. I just thought it would be a better discussion to have close to when you heard the presentation.
Sure, yep.
The only question I have before we do it, and maybe it's just because I went through this before, and you probably know because you went to a meeting with several of them, this 10% figure
Mhm.
seems awfully high from what we dealt with before. We were dealt with as low as 3% and as high as about 7%.
But that figure is not just their fee. That figure includes insurance, a number of other things that he mentioned. I don't remember every one he mentioned. He said their fee is a small part of that 10%. That's just the construction management costs. So there are fees that go along with it. They have to be paid to the government for insurance and other things. The amount of money that Chrisman makes, that company, is a smaller part of that. And their rate is competitive. Again, yes, I did talk to other companies, and they're all right around 9-10%. I mean, that's just,
That's what I wanted, and they
that's just where
include,
they are.
Home
they,
builder.
the 9 or 10%,
that's
does that
standard.
include the, helping you with the presentations and going?
Yeah, all of the stuff they provide up front, their graphic design team, the websites they can put up, the social media stuff, all of the work they do up front to look at our facilities, help us know what needs to be fixed, what, et cetera. All that stuff they do at risk. If we don't pass the bond,
I understand that.
they make nothing. And the only place they make money is, matter of fact, you know, what she had told me is their whole department, the work they do is totally overhead for their company. Their money is all made through the construction management.
The other question I have to ask, which we went through, is did you research some of the ones they did and how happy the schools were with the company?
Yes, I have. I've talked to 3 different ones that they've worked with. 2 of them were at the presentation with them. So of course, you know, they're very happy with them. And one other one, and I've heard nothing but good things from them.
Okay.
I thought they had a good presentation. It was very professional.
I was very impressed by her. She was the only one up there at the presentation, but I was very impressed by Amy, and they were with an architect as well, C2AE, I think is the name of the company. Very impressed by them up there, which is why
A good presentation is great, but if you take 10% of a project, that's a lot of money.
But this is a company that does a lot of work in Michigan for a lot of different schools.
If they're competitive and they have people that like them, and they seem like they'd be really good in promoting it, I think it goes a long way to deciding if we want to go with that company. And I would certainly like to talk about it during the meeting. We only have the one item on.
Yeah, so that would be my intent. If there's any other information you want me to bring, or want me to try to find out before then, I'll try to find out, and we can discuss it next Thursday.
The 10% thing is standard from what I understand across a lot of construction, not just schools. I mean, that's what my builder charge on our house is 10%. And to be honest, we're getting a deal because we're not going to do a $500 million project here, so they're not going to make as much money as they would on an Okemos.
Right.
So I'm just concerned. I'm hoping that they'll still provide the same level of service to us. That's the only concern that I would have.
One thought I have is that if we make major improvements in this property, that goes a long way toward bringing other kids from other districts to our school.
I'd say let's go ahead and do that discussion and everything that you'd like to do next week then as well.
Thank you.
Yep. Anything else for board roundtable? I would like to share that I wanted to pass along a great comment that I received. I have a family friend who I had recommended to come be a substitute teacher for Union City, and she substituted at the elementary, and she said it's the best school that she has substituted for so far, and that she gave high kudos to
Was it her first school?
Jennifer. No,
Okay.
her first really good school. There's been other schools that she's already subbed at that she said she'll never go back. But I will tell you that this person was highly, had lots of good things to say about Union City and about Jennifer. And I wanted to pass that along in a public
Great news.
session.
That's great to hear.
So, yeah, congratulations on that.
Is he certified in special ed?
No. I'm afraid not. All right. If there's no more about board roundtable, we'll move on to adjournment, and I would entertain a motion for the same.
Jen?
So moved.
Support.
Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Motion carries. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you for